to our fourth and final episode for 2021 of Cyberwork Live by Infosec. As you may know from our weekly Cyberwork podcast, we've talked with over 175 different industry thought leaders since 2018 about cybersecurity trends, the way those trends affect the work of Infosec professionals, and we've offered tips for breaking in or moving up the ladder in the cybersecurity industry. And today, it is all happening live in front of an attended audience. I am Chris Sanko, Cyberwork Live host and Infosec Director of Online Content. And as you already know from the title screen, today's topic is Cybersecurity Project Management. Your career starts here. And with that, I'd like to introduce you to our esteemed panel of guests today. First up, we have Jackie Olshack, Senior Program Manager at Dell Technologies. Jackie Olshack worked almost 20 years as legal secretary paralegal for multiple patent corporate law firms. In the late 1990s, she began to recognize that it was becoming harder to break the ceiling on her $58K salary as more and more attorneys were typing their own documents, managing their own calendars, and making their own travel arrangements, putting the future of her career in jeopardy. After some introspection, she decided to go back to college and pursue a science degree with plans to go to law school and become a patent attorney, but couldn't get her LSAT hire to even get into a fourth-tier law school. She now proudly thanks all those law schools that turned her down, preventing the dreaded $150K to $200K law school debt that she would have incurred. As a project manager, Jackie's 15 years experience of managing and implementing IT programs successfully. She's an expert on NIST 171 and 853 principles, CMMC, and the FedRAMP process. She implements IT compliance programs and leads cross-functional teams, working successfully with executive leadership. Next, please welcome Ginny Morton, Advisory Manager, Identity Access Management for Deloitte Risk and Financial Advisory. Ginny Morton's career with cybersecurity spans over 17 years. During this time, she has led teams to improve organization cybersecurity practice, beginning with infrastructure, network identity, all the way to endpoint security process and involvement. Additionally, Ginny is an expert in program and project management, both in waterfall and scale agile. Outside of Deloitte, Ginny is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve and specializes in network and system engineering and security. She actively engages in helping veterans to transition from military to the private sector workforce and participates in many veterans outreach programs, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that today as well. Jackie and Ginny, welcome to Cyberwork Live.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Good morning and good afternoon, good day, everyone.
All right. So I wanted to talk a little intro at the beginning here by talking about some of the reasons that you wanted to do this live episode, because this was something that was pitched to me by Jackie and Ginny. And, you know, I can let you tell me in your own words why you wanted to do a live episode about project management as a career start.
Sure. So I'll go first. When we did the first podcast, Chris, I noticed immediately after, literally right from, I guess it was early March through the fall, I've gotten a lot of requests. How did you actually do it practically, step by step? I got college students saying, I'm not sure what to do, but I want to do what you're doing. I want to learn how to do what you talked about. And I got lots of questions around what cert should I pursue? Or I'm in a company, I'm a receptionist, I'm in HR, I'm in X. How do I transition to project management, cybersecurity project management specifically? And I found that the requests I was getting similar questions over and over again. And I thought it would be great to pull Ginny and myself together and address those on this platform.
Did you have similar experience, Ginny? Were you getting people from your episode as well?
Yes, I get many of the military personnel who contact me, and even though on top of that is because when I transitioned out and I was lost, and even when I did my own research, I didn't know what I was good at until I was fortunate enough that the Army offered me a PMP course. That's when it dawns on me, that's actually my skill set. It doesn't matter what you do in the military. Many of the things, because we want to drive results, we want to get things done. but we don't have a name. Anything we do, we don't have a name to label a skill set. So when transitioning out, we don't know what we have, but we actually have a lot to offer. So now that I'm where I am at, I would love to let more military veterans or anybody that is interested in project management to know, hey, you got the skill. How you get in, listen to the podcast, do research, come talk to me, and I can help you.
All right, so we're going to be taking questions from the audience as they come in throughout the event. But to start with, we have a bunch of great questions that Jackie and Ginny have been asked several times since their respective appearances on the show. So we're going to use those as kind of our framework to carry through the hour. As Jackie and Ginny both noted, immediately after being on the podcast, they started getting contacts on LinkedIn, and like to thank all of our listeners for being that proactive. It'd be very easy to just listen passively to our show. So we're very glad that people are taking action, and that warms my heart. But at the same time, Jackie and Ginny both noted that they had kept getting the same questions over and over. So I think this is going to be a really good place to sort of answer those on a large scale, because if 5 people asked you, probably another 50 are thinking but didn't have the courage to ask about them. So let's see what we can do here. So this event is loosely divided into 3 sections, and the first one here on the slide is breaking into project management. How do I get into cybersecurity project management? Second, we'll move into how do I do cybersecurity project management well? And finally, how do I pivot from project management into other areas of cybersecurity? So we have several questions as part of each section. So let's begin with part 1 here, breaking into project management. So the first question is just about as straightforward as you can get. How do I break into cybersecurity management? And to make this a more manageable topic, Jackie, I think Jackie is sort of going to be leading the first section on getting into things, although both will be talking. And then Ginny's questions from her listeners came from people who are already in project management that wanted to do it better. So Jackie helpfully suggested 3 main areas of improvement that are necessary to put your best foot forward, and I'm going to just put them on the screen here. So we're going to give tips for updating your resume to catch the hiring manager or recruiter's eye for a cyber project management role, proper conduct and good questions to ask during the interview, and creating your elevator pitch about yourself that you can say in less than 90 seconds. So let's start with the first one. Jackie and then Ginny, do you have any recommendations or suggesting for changing up your resume to emphasize your natural talents in this area? And also, what are some common mistakes you see that pushes resumes of aspiring project managers to the bottom of the consideration pile? Let's start with you, Jackie.
Okay, so I got this question a few times, and here's the advice I've given, and it's actually advice I follow myself. I look at the type of job I want. I find that job. It could be on LinkedIn, it could be Indeed, it could be a rec. Someone in the office says, look this over, I'd like to consider you for it. And the first thing I do is try to figure out what they want, what they're asking for, because that's going to tell me what's important to them. And then if it's a job I need to submit a resume to, I tweak my specific resume to match that job description. Now, I'm not saying you falsify anything, but I use the terms, the verbiage that I see in the job description. I make sure it's reflected on my resume, because what do we want to do? We want that HRIS system that we submit our resume through. We want it to flag us as a resource that is someone that's a candidate for the job interview. So the first thing I would say is identify specific words from a job description that interests you and make sure that verbiage is reflected on your resume. One other point is I would reach out to folks who would say, I want cybersecurity, but I don't have a cyber cert. I want cybersecurity project management, but I don't have my PMP. And folks, this is what I've done. I followed this process for years. Before I got my PMP, my resume said studying for PMP. prepping for the course X month, X year. Again, why did I do that? Because PMP would get flagged in the HRIS system, and someone would go, well, maybe she doesn't have the cert, but she is studying for it. So I would recommend, if you don't have a cert, but you're pursuing it, make sure that's reflected on your resume, pursuing CISSP, pursuing CISM, and planning to take the exam X month, X year.
Yeah. And actually be planning to do it too. Don't just tell them that. get the study in, folks. January's coming. Time for resolution.
Absolutely, get the study in.
There you go. Ginny, anything to add to that?
Sure. Everything Jackie said, I totally agree with it. And that's one point I want, instead of me coaching you how to do a resume, I want you to understand one thing. I want you to picture yourself walking into a car dealership and then looking at new cars. The first thing you want to do is looking at the MSRP, what function they have, how much. So because that catch your attention, just imagine if the MSRP is a whole bunch of words telling you how great this car is, you're going to walk away. So resume is the same thing. So the key thing is avoid telling them how awesome you are. Avoid using a lot of adjective. How you tell them how awesome you are is what you do in that project. What is the result? And numbers matter. Spell out your numbers. When I say spell out, don't say TWOMILLION. Don't do that. Literally 2000, a whole bunch of zero together. So spell out all your numbers and tell them what the result you have driven. The result can be saving the company however much money, raising your cyber readiness from failing to 100% passing. Those numbers matter. So for the military folks, you understand how you write your evaluation report. It's pretty much the same way, but in a private sector terminology.
Yeah, and one thing I want to add to that is that we all do lots of different tasks in our job, and I think that's the thing is people get stuck in this idea of, well, I have my one resume and I can't change it. But as you said, Jackie, like we're all doing lots of different things, and maybe 10% of the things we do would apply to this job, 30% to that job, but make the resume look like that's the thing that you do, because you do that and you can do that. And even if you don't do it all the time, that's how you grow and learn. So I think that's great advice. So let's move from there to proper conduct and good questions to ask during an interview. So Jackie, you said that when you would get LinkedIn contacts, that you would set up a quick 5-minute screener on Zoom to talk with people, and you said that there were some interview no-nos that you had. Can you talk a little bit about some changes that would help leave a good impression on the person that either wants to hire you or that even just wants to help you out?
Yeah, sure. So what I would do is I would give folks a few questions, and we schedule like a 30-minute Zoom or Google Meet. And the questions would be, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Why do you want to be a cybersecurity project manager? And describe to me in 1 or 2 sentences a project you've managed and tell me about the outcome. And I would specifically ask for 48 hours to review answers to the questions, and I'd ask for a Google invite. And I would get folks that would send me a 3-hour Google invite. They would write pages and pages of answers to the question. And without fail, I would tell folks as gently as I could, I didn't give you these questions by accident. I'm really trying to figure out, are you paying attention? Because it is critical for project managers to be attentive to detail. Folks on your project, they may not stay as alert as they are supposed to be, getting work done, doing it when it should be done to the level of quality it should be. And when they miss that boat, they run to you, asking you to get them back on track. And you need to know, this is the scope, this is the timeline, this is how much flexibility, wiggle room we have. And if you don't adhere to instructions or requirements, it's gonna make it tough for you to be a successful project manager. So that was one thing. Another thing is folks didn't seem to understand that not just are the company and the HM hiring manager and recruiter interviewing you, you really want to interview them as well. You know, it's great to be called in for a job, but at the end of the day, you want to make sure that's a fit for you. You've got some power too. And folks need to think about, what am I going to be doing? What's expected of me? And recognize your value. So the proper conduct and good question, I want to reiterate and reinforce, folks, think about your strengths and weaknesses. When, again, you look at a job description, when you know your strengths and weaknesses, you understand what skills you have that are transferable. I referred back in the first podcast, if you are a school teacher, for the love of God, I get nervous because I think if a group of school teachers ever make up their mind, they're going to put a lot of project managers out of business because they are so versatile. They deal with so much stress. And as a teacher over children, you're dealing with life. You know, little kids, they put things in their mouth. Big kids, they get frustrated, they act out. You manage that every day, every week, year in, year out. So when you think about your strengths and your weaknesses, understand how that transfers to what a company needs from you, and then phrase questions to pose to the hiring manager or the recruiter.
Absolutely. Ginny, anything to add to that?
Sure, I can talk about this all day with Jackie, with everybody over here, but I'm going to try to keep it short. So really, we're talking about conducting interview while you interview, like how you're going to leave an impression. So I would say a little bit prep work is make sure you understand the company you're interviewing. Do some Google research, look on their website. That's very important. I can tell you, sometimes you can interview really good. At the end of the day, at the end of the interview, your interviewer will just ask you a question. Hey, so what do you think about my company? How do you like the website? If your answer is, oh, I'll go check it out, instantly, no matter how great you are, they won't hire you.
That's true.
So that's one thing. And the second thing to understand is they are also human. They don't know you. They might be uncomfortable as well. So how are you getting yourself confidence enough, be yourself well enough to make them feel like, okay, we're on camera just like I'm right now. I don't see you, but I have to make myself comfortable so I can talk. And as you know, I have an accent. If I get nervous, my accent amplifies 10 times worse and you won't be able to understand me. So how do you condition yourself to understand they're human too, calm down, be confident, and talk about what you need to talk about? And the second thing is pay attention. And Google, and when you look in Google, you know many big corporations such as Apple, during the interview, they will repeatedly asking you dumb questions. They do that on purpose because they want to know your reaction and want to know if you're paying attention. So the key is pay attention to what they're asking. If they say some term that you have no idea what it is, write that down, ask them. When you say this, skater, I'm just making up an acronym. What do you mean? Ask them that so they know you're paying attention. The third last thing I want to talk about is when Jackie talked about knowing your weakness. Okay, you know your weakness. How are you going to advertise that weakness? Okay, let's say, for example, my weakness is I talk too much. So you can't just stop there. Well, I talk too much and I realize that. And in a good way that build relationship with others, but sometimes I pay attention throughout the year that I learn to stop in the middle of my talk to see other ask questions. So that way I improve. Even though it's still my weakness, I am improving. I'm doing better every day. So they know, okay, this person is good. Like I can put him in front of the business and I can put her, and I know she's listening. So that's good. So twist your weakness around to become your strength.
Okay, real quickly, I just want to move on to the third point, creating an elevator pitch about yourself. And I think people use an awful lot of filler words and, or things that they've seen on LinkedIn or whatever. So do you have any tips for crafting an elevator pitch for the first time? And, what are some cliche phrases to avoid when creating your elevator pitch?
So again, folks have to think about the image they want a hiring manager or a recruiter to have of them. So when I think about an elevator pitch, ask yourself, who am I? What do I do? And why am I important? If I were to get on the elevator or be in the cafeteria and I work at Dell, if I see Michael Dell and he turns around and says, hi, who are you? What do you do? I need to be able to answer that. I need not to be able to take up a lot of time. Yep. And in 60 to 90 seconds, he should know, hi, I'm Jackie Olshack. I manage disaster recovery. If Dell's data center were in those 5 states that endured a tornado, the work I do means we would be up and running without a blip to our clients or to our internal stakeholders. Right there in less than 90 seconds, oh, Jackie Olshack, she's in disaster recovery. I'm so glad to know our data center is protected and we've got backups, blah, 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 blah. I don't want to say waste people's time. You need to tell people who you are, why you're important, and what you do, so that when they see you, they have an image of your value. So I'll pause there. Maybe Ginny has something to add.
Yeah.
Sure. Like this is really good. I'm not going to repeat what Jackie said because that's what I was going to say, but thank you, Jackie. So then the next thing is, sometime on top of that, I want to make an impression. And because this elevator sometimes is short and outside of the pitch, if it's not Michael Dell, because everybody know who Michael Dell is if you work for Dell, maybe it's somebody that is a vice president, is a director, that's very important. But you know what they do, but they have no idea who you are, but they don't have any question to ask you. So what do you do then? Ask them question. Hey, I heard you in cybersecurity doing this. How do you like it? And just sometimes random question. If they have a cast on their wrist or they're wearing a different shoes, I'm like, hey, what happened to your arms? Just start a casual conversation to make it personable, that you would know they're interested in talking about it. How about the golf game yesterday, or how about the game yesterday? So get them talking to you. Eventually, you can get into the business as well.
Yeah, I think for people who live in their head, as a lot of us do, there's a multi-stage aspect to that. It's like one, stop talking about yourself so much and ask about the other person. And then two, the thing that took me even longer to learn was ask about the other person and then actually care about the answer. Because it's one thing to say, what happened to your arm? And then immediately go back into your head and think, I can't wait to tell them what happened to my arm when I was 7 years old or whatever. So, I think those are great. I think those are really great points. And it all comes down to a comfort level. I think Jackie said, make them feel comfortable in the interview because they're uncomfortable as well. And you think about that with, an author or an actor or someone you're being, interviewing, is if they make you feel comfortable, you're going to feel good with them. And you're going to say, this person fits well in this role in my head. And that's going to give you such an advantage. So Jackie, I want to ask you a little bit about updating your LinkedIn profile as well. You just noted that here that you wanted to talk about that. Do you have some specific tips on that?
Yeah, I wanted to encourage folks to make their LinkedIn page reflect their personality, reflect their strengths and their skills. A few years ago, someone encouraged me to make sure you put a picture up, a vibrant picture. And what do you do? LinkedIn, there's a lot of blank space back there. So use that to your advantage. And one other point I want to make is LinkedIn has the functionality where you can put a blurb across your picture or your name, and it says open to work. But there are two components to that. It can be broad, where anyone who pulls your profile up will see it, or you can make it so that only hiring managers and recruiters see that. So there's another way to market yourself. If your LinkedIn profile reflects your strengths, describes what you do. And if you put that little notification on your profile that you're open to work, should an opportunity be available that you wouldn't hear about or see, you create a opportunity for folks to find you and locate you based on how you tweak your profile.
Oh yeah. LinkedIn is so crucial these days. I mean, it was, it's been a butt of jokes for comedians and stuff for years, but there's so much you can do with it. And it really is where people are looking for you these days more so than ever. So I want to jump forward. We're going to jump around a little bit because we actually have gotten a couple questions from people in the audience, and thank you very much for your questions. So the third point we were going to ask was, what cybersecurity and or project management certifications should I pursue? So the first one we got was from Jordan Perry. Thank you, Jordan. I am a human capital consultant through Deloitte, looking to maybe get an AWS cert. Would you advise this, Ginny? As well, I'm a veteran. We get a lot of questions about getting the right cert, because obviously everyone's time is precious. And there's this fear of like, if I learn this thing and then I can't use it, then that was time wasted. But can you speak a little bit about that, Ginny? Do you think an AWS certification is going to be useful in this area?
Hey, Jordan, I think I know you by name. I haven't seen you yet, but I think I know you. So,
all right.
That's a great question. I would say yes on any certification. AWS is good because you're talking about cloud security. And for the listener who are not familiar with AWS, which is Amazon Web Service, it's the cloud-based, it's a cloud Amazon offer, it's a platform and software and all of that. And it's huge. So I would say yes. And so it's along with, and I'm not trying to advertise, but it's just for cloud security, the big one is really Amazon, Azure. Any of these cloud certificates is very good for you to at least get into cybersecurity or even be more specialized in cloud security. And cloud security is going, it is a really wide industry, and it is going everywhere. So yes, it is a very good certification to get into.
And a point about AWS is Amazon offers free training. So the very basic, the most foundation, you can pursue that without cost.
Nice. Always good. Check out any and all free knowledge you can get. It's always gonna return dividends someday somehow. Curtis Sweet asks, I am currently ITIL 4 and Project Plus certified. I am most interested in cybersecurity project management. Are these certifications useful for breaking into project management and cyber? So these are, I think, more general project-oriented things, and Curtis wants to know if you can use these in a cybersecurity space. Do either of you have these certs, or do you use them on a regular basis?
So I have ITIL 4. Sorry, go ahead, Ginny.
No, go ahead, Jackie. Since you talk about ITIL 4, yes, first.
Yeah, I have ITIL 4. I got that late 2019. I'm going to be honest. For me, that doesn't help me, from my perspective, on a daily basis, manage my projects. What I find, and Ginny, I'd love to hear what you think. What I find is, do you have the proper organizational skills? Do you have the proper soft skills? Can you engage your team when things are getting off track? Do you have the ability to pull folks together, get folks on track? When folks are being a bit vague or aren't sure what to do, do you have the skill set yourself to pull out of them what needs to be done? And if they can't do it, then find the resources to do that. ITIL 4 and the other certs, they're great. Don't get me wrong. It's great to have that knowledge. But for me, it doesn't make or break my success as a project management professional. It enhances it, but it's not a deal breaker for becoming a successful project manager. Ginny.
And echo to what Jackie's saying, ITIL is good. And if you want to, it will benefit you more if you go to IT project management or help desk service type, field services type work. IT will help you because it talk about information technology in customer service. How do you service them? For cybersecurity, and I see a chat on from Jordan too, and I think he's right on for some of the key terms I'm seeing. If you want to break into cybersecurity and you don't have the experience or the network to get yourself in, on top of what Jackie's saying, your organization, your soft skills, or maybe a PMP cert, some agile cert, and just like what Jordan said, the CISSP and CISM, and those will help you. And those might be a little bit harder if you just introduction to cybersecurity. And there is also a CompTIA security plus cert. You can get into, at least have something. And Jackie mentioned that as well on his podcast. Look at her, she's showing her book.
Yeah, there you go.
You can get into.
Never leave home without it.
Yep. So that you have something you can show for on the resume, and it will give you a better chance of getting an interview. Then you can expand on what you know about cybersecurity.
Okay, that's a great transition. I want to move to the next slide here because I think there is definitely a strata between people who do project management work who want to move into cybersecurity but feel sort of intimidated by the sort of technical baseline of knowledge. So let's talk about what you need to know about cybersecurity to be a successful project manager in the space, and equally importantly, what you don't need to know. So let's start with Jackie here. You said you moved from administrative and legal space into cybersecurity. How comfortable were you with the space when you started?
So it was hard. I will not lie. I did not have a strong technical background. I started with learning and development projects. I started in technical project management, but on the business side with CVS Health. And then we found ourselves in we had some issues around vulnerability management, and that's how I got thrown into the technical piece. But fortunately for me, I have a strong organizational skill set that helped me tremendously. So Ginny might be a better person. I don't think you need to be technical. So I showed this book. I do believe it helps you be successful. It helps you with the lingo, and you understand what your SMEs, subject matter experts, and various resources are talking to, complaining about when you do have some insight. But for me, I needed to study. But I don't think it's a deal breaker. It certainly makes your life easier. But Ginny, you probably know more because you're definitely more technical than me.
So thank you, Jackie. You really speak so highly of me. I don't think I'm that technical, but thank you. So I can tell you a story, well, one of my experience. So being in the Army for so many years until I worked for Dell before, and I can tell the first year I was not technical. I can honestly tell you I did not understand the difference between a switch and a router. Cisco, not your home router. I did not understand VLAN. And to you, many people might start laughing. How can you not understand that? I just didn't. But I was successful. But because of my own personal pride, I want to know more. And there was an opportunity in the Army to put me through a network engineering school. So I became a lot more technical. Does it help? Yes, somewhat it does help a little, but mainly I agree with Jackie. It's more about your soft skills. The technical skill helped me to understand and to learn faster. And you can ask Jackie, it doesn't matter how untechnical you are. As long as you're organized, you're willing to learn. When you jump into a project, you will learn somewhat on the high level technical aspect to help you manage the project. And I asked Jackie, and sometimes she know more perfect identity access management than I do. And she's telling me she's not technical, but she actually knows a lot. So it's about how you learn and how you adapt, and how curious you are when you see a new product. For example,
and also learning by doing as well. I think that's
yes, exactly. So
I want to. This moves. I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, Ginny, but I want to kind of keep us moving because we're 35 minutes in. But This is a good transition, I think, into the more general question of your cybersecurity project management skills. So a common question Jackie got was, how do I build my cybersecurity project management skills? And there's a lot of ways we can go with this one. So let's start with determining what skills you need to build in cybersecurity, and then maybe we can talk about how to get better at these tasks, where and how to practice, and how to stretch yourself into harder and more complex but impressive tasks, especially if you aren't being given these types of projects in your daily work. So, like you said, it's one thing to get a certification in these areas, but can you talk about, especially if you're not in a project management space, but you want to move there, like what are some skills you should be refining and acquiring now that will put you toward that? Because Jackie, you said that you talked to some people and people said, well, I've managed hundreds of projects, and what you realize is what they meant is I've done hundreds of tasks, but that's not necessarily managing a project. So can you talk about some of those distinctions?
Sure. So the first thing I would do is you gotta understand what the marketplace means when the term project and project manager is sort of bounced around. So the first thing you need to do is get up to speed on the vernacular. So what is a project? You need to know that. And for me, at the very basic, at the core of it, it's a deliverable that has a defined scope, a start, an end date, and it has a budget attached to it, right? And so that's a project. And a project manager is someone who manages that scope, make sure whatever that is, if we're building a house, then that house gets built the way we want it built. And the proper resources needed to build that house are available when they're needed and to the specified budget. So you need to know that. And you get that information through PMI.org, YouTube, Googling. Now, I will also say this. I didn't have the technical piece and I didn't have the cybersecurity piece when I was at CVS Health. I had been managing projects on the business side. But what I did do is I had a mentor and I said, hey, I really want to do something more complex. And he sent me over to this gentleman runs the PMO there. And he sent me over to the vulnerability management team, or the project team that was managing the vulnerability program at CVS Health. So sometimes you're going to have to get out of your comfort zone, network, find out what's going on at your place of employment around cyber, and literally ask to do the work. People are always looking for extra hands.
Yes.
Go ahead, Ginny.
Yeah, no, I agree with what Jackie said. Know your environment. Go explore. Have initiative to know more than you should. So, and another thing is, when I'm looking at cybersecurity project management skill, as in when you're gone, can you still communicate with people when I say you're gone on your day off or you cannot be in the meeting? Can you communicate to your stakeholder, either by a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, to let them know the progress of your project? It's easy to say that, but it is really hard to do if you don't understand the project, or you have a challenge on how to express yourself on paper. So that's something to dive into, and that skill you can expert. And like Jackie said, look into PMI or reach out to the PMs that you think they are good, or reach out to us.
Yeah. All right. So these are all great answers, and I think that's a good place to sort of go end the beginner area. So I want to jump into part 2, which is doing the work of project management. So both Jackie and Ginny, and especially Ginny, sent in questions that she had received from people who I think were looking for advice regarding doing project management better. So these are people who are in the space rather than looking to get into the space. And so before we even begin, Stacy Morton, who's listening in right now, just asked how much time and effort is spent in the initial phase of cybersecurity projects. So I think that's a question about the sort of front end. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Jenny, you can take
so
that
it
one.
depends.
You want to start?
Sure. So it depends. It depends on the nature and the complexity of your project. In the general rule, and I'm going to use the Army methodology, is the 1/3, 2/3 rules. You plan for 1/3 of the time, and then the 2/3 of the time you talk, you communicate, you execute. That's the general term. But it really depends on how complex the project is. And for example, if you're just doing a storage expansion, all you need to know is the current storage, how much you need and where to order it, and how much people you need to coordinate with, data center to get all that stuff. So that can be a short planning, but a long implementation. But let's say you want to do a network upgrade. Let's say your equipment is end of life. You have to bring a whole new set of appliances into the environment to migrate all the users. So all of a sudden, your planning is going to be really huge. And you have to make sure that, like, I'm not going to go into detail, but the planning is going to be big.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Jackie, anything to add to that?
Well, one thing I would say is ask for a charter. Ask for the SOW. That's going to tell you what you need to deliver. And when you see what you need to deliver, that's going to help you understand what's required to get from A to B to Z. That's going to help you with the planning piece. It's critical. Ask for that charter, ask for the SOW, and I think that'll get you some of the answers you're looking for.
Yep. All right. So we've got a question here from a project manager that was sent in advance. They write, in an agile world, there is no project manager but scrum masters. So instead of leading the team to get the project done, how do you coach them to understand the big picture, their responsibilities and impact of their tasks so they can start leading their work stream instead of you? Ginny, what are your thoughts on this? This sounds like it's coming from a frustrated project manager who feels that they need to hold the hands of everyone on their team and they're wishing they could help the team help themselves. Is that the right way to think about this problem?
Yes, and I can tell you traditionally, project manager in a PMP or waterfall format is really you try to understand everything. You leading the team. Hey, so-and-so, let's say I'm just going to use Jordan's name because that's the name that pop up, and Scott. Jordan and Scott, you need to go do this. You need to go do that. You come back and tell me what's going on, right? But in the agile world, you can't because there's no assessed scope of what you're doing. Everything is, many of the things is explore. For example, building a software, you only know the end result. There's no structure. You need to talk to your developer. So how you coach the developer as the Scrum Master is really have them understand, that's the documentation called BRD. What is the business want? The outcome is. Have them communicate with them, coach them to understand that first. When they understand, so every single process, they have a team, the developer know what to do. Now you have to every day, at first it might be every day you have to coach them, hey, we have a short meeting to talk to the team. What do you want to talk about? Do you have an agenda? And if when you coach that person enough to ask them for the agenda, eventually they will get it. Okay, it is my meeting, it is my piece, I'm responsible for it. Just closely monitor until they get up to speed, then you can slowly back off a little. So at first you might still be a PM just a little, but if you really coach them, they will be able to stand up on their own and lead the work stream.
Anything to add to that, Jackie?
Again, I would find out what is your obligation. So now, some folks call themselves a Scrum Master, but they're operating as a project manager. Some companies will say we're agile, and they're still operating in a waterfall environment. But if you're doing true Scrum Master agile work, then you've probably created some stories, or you need to. So what are you guys trying to accomplish in those sprints? And asking that question, understanding what the end result is, I think that in and of itself will help your team. I don't want to say coach themselves, but it will help them understand what they need to accomplish without you sort of taking the bull by the horns per se. So to me, it all goes, I think of agile, frankly, and no one seems to say this out loud, but I think of agile as just mini projects. you've got a sprint. To me, that's a mini project. You got something you need to complete, a scope, a story. You've got a start and a finish. Maybe it's 2 weeks or a month. That's your time. And you've got a restricted budget. Pull the team together. Okay, how are we going to accomplish this? And they can usually, if they are a good team, if they kind of, sometimes some folks aren't talkative or collaborative. They can usually go off and do what needs to be done. But sometimes you may have to kind of act project management like and get them started. So I'm not sure if that helps.
I think it does. And so let's move from there to the other. We talked agile. Let's talk the other big A word here, ambiguity. So our next question wants to know about the concept of ambiguity. They write, how do you deal with ambiguity when your customers are not even sure what they want other than a more secure network? And how do you coach teams to deal with this ambiguity? I think here we get to the crux of an issue with people in PM positions, which is that if your personality type is to make everything a procedure or a definitive task to be completed, then how do you sculpt that process when the only directive coming to you is, I don't know, just make it safer? Ginny, you want to start with that?
Sure. So I'm just going to stomp on the ground like 3 times to let you know that might potential be your interview questions. So pay attention to this. So how do you deal with ambiguity? And sometimes, yes. And I can tell you it's not sometimes. Most of the times, your customer or your business don't know what they want other than, hey, I want to get it better. And you will experience that. So what you do, really, pay attention to what they're saying. Ask a lot of questions. And sometimes you have to go with what you know. You have to go with what you know and continue to ask questions. You might not get it right the first time, but the more questions you ask, the more you get into the project, you will understand clearly where this is going. And coach your team the same way. However you learn, coach your team the same way to learn this purpose, learn the process. And documentation is really important. Document each event, what's going on, what did the customer say, what did my business tell me what they want to do, and have reason of all of the justification, demand, or ask that your customer, your business is asking. So when you do that, the whole ambiguity will become more clear and you will have more direction to follow to do the work that your customer, your business want you to do.
All right, Jackie, anything to add in terms of the ever-dreaded ambiguous project?
Well, I think Ginny hit it on the head. I like what she said about what does the customer want? So at the end of the day, what does the secure network mean to you? What does that look like? And get them to elaborate on that, because sometimes they don't know. But to Ginny's point, if you dig in and you ask questions, it'll help them frame a picture in their mind and it'll help them communicate it to you. So,
Okay, so I want to move into part 3 here. This is pivoting out of project management and into other areas of cybersecurity. So we had a couple questions here from various folks, and so I want to start with something, and I got a little quote from Jackie at the bottom of the slide here, but one person asked, how do I change roles in an organization? And Jackie said, I was contacted by HR analysts and receptionists, librarians, even a ballet dancer, armed forces, personnel, and even a Navy SEAL. My answer to this is always start where you are. That's easiest because you know the environment. Can you give some suggestions for ways that you can find new spots in your own company? How do you do your current work, learn new skills, and make yourself available to the company at the same time? And what might you say if you're in a company where they say, I'm glad you want to try something new with us, but we'd really hate to lose you in your current position, so maybe just stay there instead. Obviously, sometimes it's not just as easy as intentionality. Sometimes your company is reticent to move things around, but we can we're kind of running out of time a little bit, but sort of talk to me a little bit about trying to move into a project manager or move from a project management space into something else if you see another opportunity come up. Jackie, you want to start?
So going from project management to something else, Ginny, you may have gotten that. I got the reverse. I'm a receptionist. how do I move into project management? I had someone tell me he worked with their company's vulnerability management team, but he liked to manage projects. And I said the same thing. If you have a good relationship with your company, start where you are. Do you have a PMO? Find out what projects are cybersecurity projects are on your dashboard. If you don't have that, introduce yourself to folks on the cyber team who work in the IT department. Somebody there is managing a certain area that is of interest to you. Take them to lunch, put time on their calendar. I love what you do. Can I talk to you about it? What can I take off your plate to build my skill set? Again, folks are always looking for extra hands, and there's always the dreaded, my status report is due. Someone was reaching out to me at work. He wanted to do something. I said, that guy, he always has to give like a 2 or 3 page status report. If you offer to take that off his hands, I said, that's your way in. So my network. But Ginny, that's probably a question you probably got.
No, you're correct. And I can tell you in many big organizations, just like Apple, Dell, or the organization I'm working for, Deloitte, you can be good at what you do and you can be a PM or something. And eventually you want to move forward into getting expertise into something, writing a paper, into a field that you're interested in or you're good at to help other people. So back to the role, how do you change role? And I can tell you can never get out of project management, but don't be scared. It's true, but it's not true at the same time. You can always jump into a specialized field in cybersecurity. Yeah. But one thing I want you to ask yourself is what cybersecurity you want to jump into? Do you understand cybersecurity? To understand how many domains there is in cybersecurity, on paper anyway. So when you understand that, pick the field. It's just like I was all over cybersecurity. I was a portfolio manager and I worked with Jackie. And now I'm strictly in identity access management. And I'm still doing some kind of project, but I am also specialized in this field. And I'm interested. And this is a good field to be in because I know that I stay here. So what do you want? Ask yourself at the end of the day, what do you want? What do you want to go for? Yeah. How are you going to read up to it in order to go to that field?
Well, that transitions nicely into a fairly open-ended question here that you received. What's the next step after being a cybersecurity project manager, and gaining project manager knowledge, experience and knowledge? So again, this feels like the person asking you to do their work for them a little bit, but there's a lot of directions you can move out of a project management position. But for people really just starting to think about this stuff, what are some common pivots from people who start in project management space before moving into other areas of cybersecurity? Ginny, you mentioned identity access management. Can you talk about some other sort of common transitions out of project management?
Sure. So you can always, if you have a network background, you can go to network security. And it's just like what Jordan asked. Hey, how about AWS? Hey, you can go to cloud security. And there's another thing or another set of technologies that's coming out, if you haven't heard of, called IoT. What is IoT? It's Internet of Things. What are they? Anything, including your coffee machine, if it does have an IP address, it's the Internet of Things. And those require security. Is it something you want to work on? Or do you want to be front and center, just like more action going into, for example, the Pentagons, to know everything that is happening in the world in the cybersecurity space? If you're interested in that and you don't mind doing the hard work, that will be the Security Operations Center. We call it the Cybersecurity Incident Response organization. So you can get into that. So it depends on which field you're really interested in, and you have to ask yourself, is that what you want?
All right, so let me jump to our last question here. We're running a little out of time, but someone else asked, how do you go from PMing security teams into leading them? That feels like from my novice position, it feels like there are about 16 steps missing in between. But for those who are really looking to make the big jump from project manager to the head of a security team, a CISO, or other top-tier security management position, do you have any advice? And have you seen any examples of this happening among people that you've worked with?
Hopefully, while you're PMing, you're leading your team. Yeah. So this is one of them, and you will know because you're trying to get them finish the task. You're helping them. What is leader? Leader is actually you serving at the time. At the same time, you're taking them to success. And what is leadership really mean is having somebody to do something, not because they have to do it, it's because they want to do it. The reason is because they want to do a good job or they don't want to disappoint you. So that's leading, and that's part of being a PM. So if you understand you have that, and you understand you're coaching your team is getting better because you're there to finish this task, or they continue to improve, make progress, you're leading. So when you do that, then explore yourself step by step to become a project manager, maybe a portfolio manager, a domain manager, and then come to really a people manager and go up from there. And eventually, and if you work hard for it, you're going to become a CISO one day.
I would just ask, is that really what you want? Because the CISO gets the 2 a.m. and the 3 a.m. phone calls when you have a cyber attack. I mean, so ask yourself, I would say, find out what you want, but network, make sure
your role
that's
change
what
comes
you
with
want.
A sign that says the buck stops here. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So that actually, we have one more question that came in from our audience, and I think it's in a similar space. So I saved it for this point here. Another Jordan. It says Jordan Undefined. So I don't know if that means his name is actually undefined or whether he didn't give a last name. But Jordan writes, hi, I am an IT internal compliance auditor at a health plan. I have an interest in getting my CISSP and CISM alongside my PMP. What roles should I be looking to apply to just to get my foot in the door? So this sounds like someone who already from where they are thinking sort of towards a leadership position. Can you speak to, I mean, that's very ambitious, going CISSP, CISM, PMP. So here's to you, Jordan, for you're making big money moves here, and I dig that. But can you talk a little bit about moving into this kind of leadership space and where you start looking in terms of roles and so forth?
So was the question, he is presently managing internal audit?
He's an IT internal compliance auditor at a health plan, yes.
So to me, I'm curious why, Jordan, you aren't pursuing the CISA, the audit portion of that, because you already have the compliance experience, the auditing experience. But so in my head, that would be a easier segue for you. But to me, you're already there. What was the question again? What does he want to do?
What roles should I be looking to apply to just get my foot in the door?
So you're doing internal audit now, compliance at a health plan. Every health plan has an IA, internal audit department. Find out, they've got projects because HIPAA again, right? Right. I think that's an easy easy move for you. I would reach out to whoever your IA head is and get time on their calendar and share exactly what you want to achieve. Ginny,
anything to wrap up with that with Ginny here?
Yeah, what Jack is really mean to tell you is network. You're in the industry, you have all the advantage network. Trust me, Jackie and I do plenty. And reach out to people. People like to talk. As long as you ask the right question, they love talking to you. Yep. And I know you want to focus on security and cybersecurity role. When you're doing HIPAA have many cybersecurity people that have their hands on it. Getting to know them, get their name, and let them know what you're doing. Go from there. Or LinkedIn, just like Chris said, used to be a joke, butt of the joke, but it's not anymore. Anybody that you reach out to, you introduce yourself, you send them a message, introduce yourself, what you what you want to do, they will respond. And I can tell you, Jackie told me to reach out to one of the CISO, and why would I think a CISO will have a time of the day to entertain me? But because I reach out, I stated my reason, what I need help on, to respond the right way.
Absolutely.
So reach out.
I think that's all right. So reach out. That's going to be our final call to action for the audience. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you to everyone at home or work for listening and watching today's episode of Cyberwork Live. If you enjoyed today's event and you enjoyed our guests, I'll point out that new episodes of the Cyberwork podcast are available every Monday at 1 p.m. Central, both on video at our YouTube page and on audio wherever fine podcasts are downloaded. You can also check out past guests, including an episode each with Jackie and Ginny at infosecinstitute.com/podcasts. And we've also posted direct links to Jackie and Ginny's episodes in the resources section of this presentation. So I'm excited to announce that our Infosec Skills platform will be releasing a new challenge every month with 3 hands-on labs to put your cyber skills to the test. Each month, you'll build new skills ranging from secure coding to penetration testing to advanced persistent threats and everything in between. Plus, if that's not good enough, we're giving away more than $1,000 worth of prizes every month. Just go to infosecinstitute.com/challenge and get started right now. Due to the overwhelming success of our first year of Cyberwork Live, we will be continuing the series once per quarter in 2022. Thank you to all of you who have signed up, asked questions, and shared the audio and video feeds with your colleagues and teams. The first quarter episode of 2022 has not yet been finalized, so if you want to learn more about the event and many others that are upcoming, just go to infosecinstitute.com/events. And lastly, I would like to thank again our wonderful panelists, Jackie Olshack and Ginny Morton, for joining us today. And thank you all to all of our guests for attending and submitting more great questions than we ever know what to do with. So thank you, Ginny. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. At the end of this presentation, a very quick survey will appear. If you would like to take just a moment to share your thoughts, it's appreciated and will help us to produce more great content in the future. And that's it for 2021 Cyberwork Live. Thanks and have a great day. We'll see you next year.